as Palpatine's contingency plan was put into motion by his androids following his death at the Battle of Endor. Other players were in motion, and other battles were being fought in the wake of the Imperial apocalypse and the rise of the New Republic. Welcome to the Wizards and Warriors channel. We're glad to have you with us for our final video on the Galactic Civil War. So please get comfortable, get your favorite starships into position with fireworks ready, as we invite you to witness the final gasp of the Empire and the final battle above the desert planet of Jakku. We'll also invite you into a smaller war that's a little closer to home, World War II. That's the conflict you'll face in our sponsor, World War Armies. This is a PvP RTS, inspired by games like Company of Heroes and Steel Division, but designed to be playable on mobile devices. You can play as Germany, USA or USSR, with over 20 units to deploy for each. That means combat infantry, engineers, flamethrowers and plenty of tanks. Some units can heal others, some are great for dealing damage, and others are great for taking damage. What better unit to tank enemy blows than a tank? You create an army deck to use, and no player will have the same one, so your roster will be specialized for your own tactics. Then you add generals from each nation to provide support abilities, like airstrikes or economic improvements. Once in battle, you'll need to adjust your plans to the maps and even the weather conditions, but once you have everything together, you'll see your victory unfold with explosive 3D graphics. Play solo in 1 vs 1 or play 2 vs 2 team games, and whatever you plan to do, take an early advantage by downloading World War Armies via our special link below. That unlocks the Pershing tank right after the tutorial and gives you a desert skin, so grab that for free, then dive into the action. After a period of consolidation, such as the reconstitution of the Galactic Senate at Chandrila, the New Republic was on the move, launching campaigns into the outlying sectors. Han Solo and Chewbacca left the fleet, hoping to liberate Kashyyyk, but were delayed by several setbacks, eventually being able to liberate the planet near the war's end. Another notable campaign was in the Anuat sector, where Adelhard had instituted what would be known as the Iron Blockade. Republic strength in this sector was very minimal after they had been driven out after the Battle of Hoth. Still, they regained a foothold thanks to the resistance movement known as the Uprising, which grew in numbers and popularity with its successful operations in freeing planets in the sector. The Empire did little in the way of fighting back against these assaults, and almost as soon as the Battle of Endor ended, the Empire's security and stability crumbled in a matter of days. Moffs, governors, generals, and anyone who held a modicum of Imperial authority carved up their own power base within the Empire. Palpatine had set up no direct succession, but legally, command should have fallen to Mas Amedda as the Grand Vizier of the Empire and the ruler of Coruscant. Still, as Coruscant tore itself apart into open rebellion, no eyes turned to him for leadership, as not only was his influence pitiful at best, he could not even control his own world. Instead, as mentioned, the Imperials carved up sectors, systems, and planets among themselves. Some notable examples directly after Endor being Adelhard's remnant located in the Anuat sector and Akresi's remnant located in the Velkar sector, both blockading their respective sectors and denying the defeat at Endor as slanderous propaganda punishable by imprisonment or death. Like many of the remnants, they were interested in their own political ascendance, but the majority still held the idea of uniting with other Imperial factions to restabilize the Empire. Meanwhile, the likes of the Yomo Council, based at Vadovoy's End, and the Chadorn faction, based on Chadua, broke away entirely. Still, these usually were dissolved rather quickly, either by annexation to the Republic, as Chadua was, or by annihilation from pro-Imperial remnants, such as the 204th's destruction of the Yomo. These are some examples of the Imperial remnant that we know of, but not all of them can be accounted for, as in some cases, fleets, squadrons, and even single ships formed their own factions. Two key problems, arguably more detrimental than the aforementioned fragmentation, exacerbated this. First was the fact that the Imperials didn't know who to ally with, as one wrong move could count them as traitors should their newfound ally be deemed as such by a larger or more legitimate faction. We discussed such a case previously. The commander of Shadow Wing, Colonel Shakura Nures, denied joining forces with Colonel Medregast, the commander of the ISD Unyielding and the 108th Wing, in fear of future consequences, and without the support of Unyielding, the Shadow Wing was soon attacked at Pandemnai by the New Republic and almost wiped out entirely. The second was resources. The Empire's main strength was its abundance of resources to build and supply its strongest asset, the Imperial Navy. As such, they were built to produce obedience through their firepower and imposing might, and now that entire systems were cut off from one another, their own worlds rebelled against them. They could not attain the resources necessary to maintain such operations, with many captains either scuttling or surrendering their ships to the advancing New Republic, with one notable case as an example being the surrender of 2 of the Empire's 13 Executor-class Star Dreadnoughts to the Republic, simply because they couldn't maintain them. This scenario would be played out on repeat throughout the months following Endor as the Empire fought itself and the Republic mopped up what exhausted forces were left. The Republic had grown so large that they were, by the turn of the year, an unignorable threat to the Empire. The former rebels could now make direct assaults, such as on Nalol and Geonosis, and were campaigning on key planets, steadily gaining ground. But the whittling down of the Empire had led others to consolidate into powerful factions. The largest of these, which held the most legitimacy after Endor, was the one under Admiral Ray Sloan. Sloan was by all means a competent officer and tactician, being highly decorated, and during the current war she was the highest commanding officer left after the destruction of the Executor during the Battle of Endor, and ordered a retreat after seeing the battle had swung in the rebels' favour, saving what was left of them. She then was able to gather up a large enough force to be a top contender among the remnants, with the Executor-class dreadnought the Ravager as her flagship, and a plethora of worlds behind her. Now, with the threat presented by the New Republic, she decided to arrange a meeting between a select few Imperial remnant leaders that had emerged from the fragmentation as powerful contenders on the planet Akiva to discuss the future of the Empire. However, not all was as it seemed. Before making it to Akiva's capital, where the delegates were awaiting, Sloan encountered famous rebel hero Captain Wedge Antilles, who was scouting the Akiva system and took him prisoner. Still, he temporarily escaped and sent a distress signal. Her time on Akiva filled her with apprehension, as the reliance on the native Imperial government was necessary not to bring attention from the New Republic, but at the same time meant that they had to rely on this puppet government for security matters. The meeting went poorly, as they were more content to argue with one another than to come to an agreement on what should become of the Empire. This did not last long, however, as soon they heard a crowd gathering outside the building in protest. Sloan was right in worrying that someone had leaked the meeting, and this protest soon turned into an open rebellion. She just barely managed to escape, as not only had Republic Special Forces destroyed Imperial shuttles, but also, having confirmed their presence, a fleet under Admiral Akbar arrived over Akiva and destroyed 2 of the 3 ISDs, with Sloan escaping on the 3rd. Akiva was thus captured by the Republic, and Sloan fled to the Vulpinus Nebula where the rest of the fleet was. It was now that the mysterious player would emerge, Admiral Gallius Rax. Sloan suspected he had a hand in the Akiva debacle, but Rax was, like Sloan, a decorated veteran who spent his time in personal service to the Emperor. Rax claimed that it was thanks to his efforts that they had gotten this strong, and it was he who made the Akiva summit possible. She rightly demanded to know why he had leaked the information to the Republic, and he told her that it was a necessity to get rid of their rivals, which it had done, but also to serve as a test for her, as he told her he'd need her for the restoration of the Empire, and asked her to stay as the face of his movement. She agreed, as not only was this the best option to save the Empire, but also Rax was not someone to cross. She would go with him, but she would never trust him again, and secretly took steps to investigate his involvement and mysterious past within the Empire. As the year now turned to 5 ABY, things seemed to be coming to a head. The Iron Blockade had been broken with Calrissian's liberation of Bespin and Adelhard's death. At the same time, Not only had several attacks on Naboo been repulsed, but the Republic now dealt a crippling blow to the Imperials with the capture of Kuat. This was arguably more devastating than Endor, as it held the Kuat Drive shipyards, responsible for not only nearly every Star Destroyer the Empire had made, but for the maintenance and construction of nearly all the capital ships in the galaxy. The capture of Kuat gave the Republic an overwhelming edge, as they could now refit and repair all of the ISDs they captured, as well as construct ships of their own. Admiral Sloan knew that if things continued at this rate, the Empire would be done, so she needed to come to terms with the new Republic, and hopefully in the future, the Empire could be consolidated to challenge the Republic. Rax agreed, and she asked for peace talks, which Mon Mothma and Leia Organa accepted. After a month of preparation, Sloan set out to the Republic capital of Chandrila with an escort. The planned day for the negotiations was to coincide with Liberation Day, which was arranged for the newly freed prisoners of Ashmead's Lock, a prison near Kashyyyk that was liberated during the campaign there. The New Republic was to hold the celebration in view of the galaxy, in hopes of enticing other worlds to join them, as they saw the New Republic freeing the galaxy and making the Empire come to terms. But as had been done on Akiva, all was not as it seemed, as Gallius Rax was plotting yet again. At the height of the celebration, the prisoners pulled out guns and attacked everyone within range, killing many Republican delegates and officers. The prisoners were meant to be freed, as Rax intended. He had placed biochips in them for just this reason. Sloan had known that Rax was planning something to coincide with this meeting, but not this, knowing she would either be killed or survive and be blamed for this. So she took what guards she had and fled the planet. Her aide, Adea Wright, attempted to assassinate her, working under Rax, but failed. Sloan was now disgusted beyond belief, as in her mind, Rax's tactics mirrored the rebels she so hated. She swore to take out the infection that was destroying her empire. While the assassination attempt on Chandrila certainly put a terrible stain on the Empire, as they could no longer be trusted, it also hurt the Republic as well. The event had been broadcasted through the galaxy via the Holonet, and the worlds that thought about joining the Republic were now reluctant to do so. Likewise, the worlds that were with the Republic now held doubts as to the security they could provide, as many of them had just lost their senators and delegates during the event. Mon Mothma was wounded during the incident, but quickly tried to repair the damage caused. She was able to maintain control over what systems the Republic had, but needed something to counter the sour taste left in the wake of the massacre. This came in the form of the conclusion of the Kashyyyk campaign, as the planet was finally liberated. It still had Imperial holdouts, but by and large the planet was now secure, and the major space highway it controlled was now in Republic hands, locking the Empire in the Inner Rim, with the Republic looking now for a decisive blow. The Imperials had also been busy in the months following the attack on Chandrila. They were now consolidated under the newly ascendant Councillor of the Empire, Gallius Rax, who had seen fit now to come out of hiding, blaming the Chandrila incident on Sloan. Sloan, meanwhile, had spent her time continuing her hunt for information regarding Rax, joined by a rebel Brenton Wexley. The latter was one of the prisoners of Ashmead's Lock, and was forced to participate in the Chandrila incident by Rax's chip, which made him seek revenge on the Councillor. The pair interrogated many people. Having discovered the horrifying truth behind the facade, they rushed to stop him after hearing that he was on a planet in the Inner Rim. But they weren't the only ones heading to that planet, as Rax had ordered most of the fleet there. We are unsure of the details, as it is speculated that part of his fleet was away, which we shall explain later. The build-up was eventually discovered by Republic spies, who sent notice to their commanders. After deliberation, the New Republic ordered Supreme Fleet Admiral Akbar to take all available forces and engage the Imperials above the desert planet of Jakku. The Imperials, having been on Jakku for over a month, had established bases and a weapons facility on the planet to serve the garrison troops, as well as to supply the massive fleet. The Imperial fleet consisted of hundreds of Class 1 and 2 ISDs, some interdictors, and an array of other vessels. These were support vessels to the Imperial's largest ship, the Executor-class dreadnought Ravager. The Imperial fleet was complemented by thousands of starfighters, including what remained of the infamous Shadow Wing. These were split into 3 battle groups. The first was under the command of Grand Moff Rand, and was assigned to command the forces in the atmosphere, where the majority of the fight was to occur. And on the ground, defending several bases, was General Hodnar Borum. The third was a ground support group, though we don't know if it had a commander or was subordinate to Rax. The New Republic forces were a representation of their successes in the galaxy. The majority of their capital ships consisted of Mon Cala Home 1 and Liberty-type cruisers, including Akbar's flagship, the Home 1, a mixture of medium ships that included Nebulon Bs, CR-90s, GR-75s, and an array of other vessels, including retrofitted Imperial ships, or ships native to systems that had joined the Republic. We do not hear any mention of captured Imperial ISDs, other than Syndulla's Deliverance participating in the battle, so it is likely that most of them did not participate. What we do know, however, is that there were 3 Starhawk-class battleships. These were new inventions of the Republic, built from captured Imperial ships, and were formidable opponents, as the Imperials tried desperately, but failed, to stop their development. Their deployment would be the main danger to the Imperials. The Imperials were in formation and ready to receive the Republic. By the time Akbar's forces arrived over Jakku, the Star Destroyers formed a defensive perimeter around the Ravager. The Republic, having assessed the situation, split into their respective groups, with Admiral Akbar and Commodore Agate leading the main group in the space battle. At the same time, Lieutenant General Broxley and General Tybin commanded the ground forces. Both sides began the battle by launching their fighter wings into the fray. This was standard procedure for both sides, but the last year changed everything, as the Empire no longer held numerical and skill advantage. Many pilots had perished or deserted during and after Endor, and it showed. The veteran Republic fighters now pushed the TIE wings hard towards their own ships. Had the latter been supported by their ISDs, the battle between the fighters might have been different, but Rax ordered his capital ships to the Ravager, knowing its survival determined the outcome of the battle. With the TIEs pushed back, bigger ships of the Republic advanced, and the main battle lines exchanged fire. This went on for a while. Despite the Republic's numerical superiority, they could not break through the Imperial line. The Imperials now let the Ravager loose. The ISDs would make temporary gaps in the line to allow the Ravager to release its overwhelming firepower on single ships, taking them out before the line was closed again. Meanwhile, Syndulla had begun supporting the landing of ground forces as they had tied down the fleet. The Republic began advancing steadily, but it was a hard battle as the Imperials knew this was an all-or-nothing fight and resorted to suicide tactics, which caused heavy casualties on both sides. The situation was still the same for a while as the Republic tried multiple times to break into the formation with various strategies, though none of these worked. The Imperials were taking casualties in their ships as well, as the rebels had specially designated boarding teams which consisted of ex-Imperial Navy personnel to assist them. The stalemate would break when the ISD Punishment, commanded by Captain Groff, left the formation and set a collision course for the Starhawk ship, the Amity. We don't know if it was sheer panic or perhaps a plan to take out all the Starhawks, but whatever the case, once it hit the Amity, both vessels were destroyed, with another Starhawk, the Concorde, being damaged. Commodore Agate, who captained the Concorde, immediately took advantage of the hole left by the Punishment and charged the Ravager with the urging of Admiral Akbar. This contest of firepower disabled the Concorde, as Ravager tried to destroy the ship, but Agate never planned to beat it at its best game. As the ship descended past the Ravager, the Concorde latched onto the Ravager with its powerful tractor beam, just as the Republic fighter wings were ordered to target the Ravager's engines. The Ravager didn't need them to stay afloat, so it didn't prioritize defending them. With its engines gone, the Ravager could do nothing as Concorde dragged it towards the planet below, and as it descended, the Imperials were put into disarray. the formation was broken, and the battle spilled onto the planet. Here, the Imperial vessels attempted to re-establish a line, but failed. The battle was well and truly over, and the Republic had won. While the destruction of the Ravager certainly was the apex of the climax of the space battle, something more important was happening on the surface below in a secret observatory on the planet. The now freed Brenton and Sloan, who had been captured by Rax, were now joined by Nora Wexley and her son's robot, Mr. Bones, and headed towards this observatory to stop Rax from completing Palpatine's final plan. Rax was the prosecutor of Palpatine's contingency plan. Palpatine had groomed him to execute this plan, which included Operation Cinder as its onset, and was to come to a head here at Jakku. The plan Rax had followed to a T had a goal of the complete and utter destruction of the forces of both the Republic and the Empire, hence his constant schemes, which never let the Empire reunite or stop the war with the Republic. This was the final step of the plan, as on Jakku there was a borehole that, once filled with the Sith artifacts brought there, would cause the planet to explode, killing everyone on and above the planet. They managed to stop him just as he was almost done executing the plan, gunning him down. Before dying, he passed on his plan to Sloan, telling her to take his ship, the Imperialis, and escape to a set of coordinates in the unknown regions, where they would rebuild the Empire. She and the others sealed the borehole and separated. Sloan did just as Rax said, taking the hidden portion of the fleet to the unknown regions. The Battle of Jakku was over. For another few months, as Imperial holdouts refused to surrender, but with the fleet gone and the death of Gallius Rax, there was no more united opposition to the Republic. In the wake of this, Maksym was now effectively in charge of what remained, and signed a peace treaty on Chandrila known as the Galactic Concordance, which saw the Empire officially disbanded. Some Imperial remnants remained, but they were deemed too weak. The new Republic brought peace to the galaxy for now, and the Galactic Civil War was over. For now. We're planning more videos on the Star Wars universe, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking and sharing as it helps immensely, and don't forget to comment. We will try to read and respond to every comment as we want to know what you think about this video and which videos you hope to see in the future. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.